Hello and welcome to Steven University. This week we will be discussing Gem Hunt. I was going to do that whole an episode in which thing, Chris, because somehow that is still ingrained into my very soul from when we did it for 2 years on Fringe.
Did you find just?
Go on.
Did you find yourself like during this episode wanting to just constantly be like, "We're going on a gem hunt"? That's just me.
That was just you.
Okay.
Although if I watch it again now, I will.
Yeah.
Now you've put that in my head. I got so into the habit of doing from Fringe Observers and the first 30 episodes of this that it's still ingrained in my DNA, Chris, to go, this week we're talking about Gem Hunt, an episode in which blah 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 blah. But that's not my job now. That's your job, Chris. I've passed the buck.
One day I'm just gonna let you do it. See what happens.
No, but it's I catch myself every time. I go, what an idiot, and I correct, which is
It won't be as off-putting or surprising as the time we were recording SU and you just went into Fringe Observers, which I don't think listeners of this podcast would have heard because we stuck with what you'd started. Yeah. But it was so weird.
Yeah, so basically the way we always used to do this was, when it started, the premise was we would do this once a week and it would be just easy to keep up with because before every Fringe Observers recording, we'd do a 10-minute recording of this. Obviously, this has spawned into something bigger and longer now. But we always did this first because it was the quick, easy thing and then just go into Fringe Observers. That was always the way we did it. So we did it for months and months and months. And then one day, we were like, all right, let's start recording. And Chris is expecting me to go, hello, welcome to Steven University. And I literally just went, hello, welcome to Fringe Observers. Like my brain died and I just went straight into Fringe. And Chris just went with it with very little resistance. But I could tell that that had really thrown him off.
Yeah, we might have mentioned it actually because I think my summary of the episode was really bad. Like you were like, so what happened? I was like, I don't know, I can't remember.
Yeah,
we just had another 45-minute discussion.
But
this one I can remember. So
Good.
Stephen, Connie, and Pearl are going on a gem hunt. So Connie's had been training, and they've got to a point where she can go on a mission to find a gem, and bubble it. So they're off. They're in this sort of snowy part of the world, and they're trekking along. Stephen's taking photos for Connie's parents because they want to see photographs of it. And there's a lot of gags. It's fine. Then 2 gem monsters, not one, appear, and they split off. So Stephen and Connie decide to go one way. Pearl goes the other, keeping in contact with them through a walkie-talkie. Stephen and Connie talk a bit about the gems and corrupted gems, and Stephen explains he doesn't really know what happened, but knows it was bad, stuff like that. Then they notice that the footsteps are weird because it looks like there's human footsteps and gem monster footsteps. In the end, they find the gem monster, and it goes to attack them, and then it is attacked by Jasper. And we realise that Jasper's there. I should say as well, actually, there's this quite amusing moment where Pearl's on the radio. She's like, I wouldn't want to do anything to get you in trouble. And then that alerts the gem monster to their presence, and there's some good comedy there.
When you repeat it in that sort of didactic way, it's less funny. But I assure the listeners who don't remember that joke that in the show it plays out very amusingly.
Yeah.
I think half jokes like that, when you describe them, just do not play.
Trust me, it's funny.
Yeah. Wow, there was a real intensity to the way you said that. I don't know how I feel about that, Chris. Whether I'm scared or aroused. It's one or the other.
We all know I get very intense about scenes involving Pearl. And then
that tattoo
I wish you'd phone me on a walkie-talkie. And then
Chris also privately refers to her as the hot one. So.
No, yeah, there's Hot Pearl and the cute blue one, which is the cute blue one. And then so Jasper takes the gem, puffs the gem monster, takes the shard. We see in his hand, although it's not explicitly stated, so you've got to pay attention. We realise the reason Pearl can't find the other one is because Jasper's got 2, so presumably the two gem shards of the gem, and then Jasper walks off. Pearl explains, because all episode Connie's been getting worked up about whether she can fight it or not, and is really prepared to fight it, and then sort of gets scared and calls Pearl, and Pearl explains that no, actually that was the right thing to do. It's a very sweet moment.
She kind of
it's
says
sweet.
like the thing I'm training you ultimately to fight, but the requirement today and the test today was to see if you would be willing to do the right thing and call for help when you need it, and you passed. So you may not have been at the point of fighting Jasper or these two sort of corrupted gems, but you did the right thing. You immediately contacted me rather than trying to deal with it yourself. She doesn't say it quite as elaborately as I've just done, but that's essentially what she's getting at. And I do think that's one of the more powerful moments of the episode, because I do think it puts
it's nice,
because it does fly in the face of traditional cartoon storytelling. I've been watching a lot of the Disney XD DuckTales series, because Darkwing Duck is my favorite character ever, and I've heard they're bringing him in eventually, so I'm all up to date on that. Mostly for Darkwing Duck, but it is also a very good show in its own right. And that's got a lot of like the characters don't want to learn lessons. They don't care. They just do whatever they want to do, and it doesn't really matter. And it's always played for jokes, so it always works. You get away with it. But in that show, very much it would have been they would have sort of, if it had been Huey, Dewey, or Louie in that situation, they'd have been like, I can handle this on my own, and they would have failed and then called for help and learnt that lesson. But I like that this show didn't feel the need to show us Connie getting it wrong, to show us her learning the right thing to do. She already knew the right thing to do. She went straight for the radio and summoned Pearl. She didn't try to sort it out first, fail, and learn from her mistake. She knew straight away, and that's almost more impressive and says a lot more about her character, because it flies in the face of traditional character arcs as well, and the way that story would normally have built in any other show. So yeah, I really think that's like I think that's really makes the episode in many ways.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then Stephen looks at his phone, and we've kind of got this lingering, haunting threat of Jasper with the 2 gems.
Yeah. Any theories on that? Because so for those who don't remember, so as Chris sort of briefly explained, Jasper takes the two gems once poofed for some sort of. But I can't imagine what you should have for a corrupted gem. But any thoughts, Chris?
Well, I assume she thinks she's powerful enough to use them to create to do a fusion. That's it. That's the word. For some reason, I can't think of a fusion. Yeah, I my assumption, based on the fact that the cute blue one in the episode before let her down and said she didn't want to fuse. I assume she's looking for other gems to fuse with. Is my assumption, based purely on the ending of the last episode. That was my first.
Would you believe that was
holding them up?
Was that not 2 episodes ago now?
No, Alone at Sea was the last episode. Oh, we might have had Greg the babysitter.
Yeah, Greg the babysitter. I was just about to say
that. You're right. Yeah,
because whatever happened to baby sour cream, Chris?
Yeah. Well, who knows? I fucking hate that joke.
I know you do.
That's still.
I love that joke so much, and I love it more knowing that it annoys you. This is going to be cat fingers all over again, Chris, because I freaking love that joke. So I'm going to keep bringing it up. Are you still mad about cat fingers? What are you, a child?
I just think you know what bringing it up does, so I don't know why you'd want to derail us like this.
I don't know either, Chris. I don't know either. It's a weird one, this one, though, because I don't think there's a huge amount really to say about it, is there? Once you've sort of described it.
No, it's quite A to B. It's quite, but it's still really good. Like, there's some good jokes. The other joke I really love is when she says, "It's the monsters and the humans don't usually go alike, unless, of course, the monster is a human in a big suit." But that only happens in cartoons, usually over a property dispute, which I'm assuming is a joke and a reference at Scooby-Doo's expense.
100%.
Because it's always a person in the suit, and it's always because of some like
old man Smithers who owns the amusement park.
Yeah.
No, that's it. That is definitely a Scooby. To quote one of our listeners, I think Cram, if you think it's a reference in Steven Universe, it's a reference.
Yeah. So it's got some good jokes. Connie learns a nice lesson. We've got the kind of the Jasper threat, which I quite like. It just, like I say, it just goes from A to B to C, accomplishes everything well. It's not like there's like last episode we obviously talked a lot about the psychology and the symbolism of Jasper and the cute blue one, and about how that's potentially a metaphor for an abusive relationship. There's none of that. There's not anything kind of arguably that deep in this, but that doesn't mean that there's not some of that with like Connie learning stuff and Stevens. I particularly enjoyed Stephen talking about the corrupted gems. It felt like for the first time that he was asking some questions.
I was about to reference that because I think that's one of my favorite elements of this episode is that it's really a decent excuse for Stephen to put together what he's learnt, because he's now having to pass that information on to Connie. But in putting it by constructing all the bits he does know, putting them together and verbalizing it back to Connie, it forces him to question elements of what he knows as well. And there's bits he's admitting, I don't know why that is yet. I don't know why that is. And I think it's interesting for two reasons. Connie's reactions are really great and really, I think, interesting in their own right. And then Stephen, seeing him sort of put it together and admit what he doesn't yet know sort of shows even a weird little level of growth for the character, that he's now starting to wonder and he's starting to question. And I think when he's when he's gone through so many of these sort of adventures now, not really knowing what in the world's going on, like it's interesting to see him get to the point where he's like, okay, what the fuck is all of this? Like, explain.
Yeah, and he always beginning to like. You can see him almost. He feels the guilt of the gems. Like that's the impression I got when he was talking about. I don't really know what happened, and when he says I'm sorry to
Centipede
in Monster Reunion, you can feel that creeping in, and I think that's why I like this. I think it's very clever, and I'm sure it must be deliberate. I think it's very clever that Jasper's calling him Rose. Because that just ramps up that sense of guilt, because obviously Stephen is Rose's gem, and Rose clearly, had a part to play in some of this stuff. So I think it's just, again, really deep, really clever writing.
But it's the running joke with the show, and I suppose it's not really 100% accurate, but it's always funny to go, like, episode 1, Stephen wants some ice cream. Episode, 90 odd, Stephen wonders about the crimes of his war criminal mother. Like...
Yeah.
It's a big jump. While two other characters deal with a relationship that's a metaphor for abusive relationships. Like, you could easily, you could pick any plot from once the plot sort of starts to unfold later down the line and compare it to the first episode and be like, what the fuck? But I don't think that's necessarily fair, but it does make for a nice joke. Because, I think that stuff has all been present from day one. I just think that they've intentionally dribbled information out to make that plot. Because even in the second episode, there's a reference to Rose giving up her existence to make Stephen a thing. And even then, Chris, in your sort of in the early days when you were sort of very indifferent to the show or even negative towards the show, depending on the episode and how many fingers it had in it that were feline.
Why would you do it, Dan? Why? Is it for your own amusement?
Well, I tried to not annoy you that time by not using the words cat fingers. I said fingers and then that are feline. I thought I got around it, but apparently that is not the way around annoying you. Anyway, my point is, even in those days, you talked about, finding intrigue in the hints that Rose had given up her existence to make Stephen a thing, but your complaint was, well, yeah, I want to know about that. So why is it one sentence that's hinted at it and then it's gone away? And I can see in the context of a single 10-minute episode when you're only getting those dribs and drabs early on, those moments can almost be completely forgotten, and you can go, yeah, the first episode was just about Stephen wanting ice cream or something. You know what I mean? But I think in reality there have been constant hints and build little moments that have been building to this big dramatic stuff since episode 1. And the reason these payoffs hit so hard, even though they're in 11-minute episodes, is because of all the setup and establishing that they've done in the show. And I don't think you get away with it. I don't think you get away with it nearly as much if you don't build it properly. And I think particularly as well, looking at the evolution, even something as simple as, so in the first sort of arc of the first season, those first 12 episodes, you've got Stephen pestering to be let on missions, and then they take him on some ones, and then we reveal in the test that they were easy missions on purpose to see what he was capable of. and that they're just like easing him in. And then you look at what's happening with Connie here, and you think maybe that's the same, so not exactly the same thing, but easing her in as well by taking her on these sort of simpler ideas. Because obviously they didn't know Jasper was out there; they just thought it was going to be a corrupted gem, which she's fought before.
So when
Go
on that, then I've got two questions on the Connie thing. One, I don't quite know if the hospital gem mother Connie exchange was quite enough for me to buy that she's now like, oh, go on missions and take photographs to show us. So that's one thing.
Yeah.
Two, do you think when they introduced Connie, this was the end goal for her to become a bit of a warrior, a bit of a fighter in these type of scenarios? Do you think that was planned all along?
Oh, that's a really tough question. Neither would surprise me. Is the boring down the line answer? I'd like to think they did know what they were going to eventually do with Connie, but it is entirely possible her initial intention was just to be the human friend support for Steven. But then again, it does seem like on a grander scheme, take Connie out of it for a minute and just look at all of the characters. It seems the idea has been from day one to have a line distinctly drawn down the middle, gem stuff, human stuff, and then start to blur it. So I suppose the gem stuff was always going to enter Connie's world in some form or another. Whether through her learning how to fight and stuff or not, I'm not sure. But then again, you think back, it was the first Lion episode. It was one of Connie's third appearance, and her and Steven used the tennis racket to beat that robot thing.
Yeah.
And that's really early. That was like the second Lion episode, maybe. So that was really early in the run. So I guess they have known to at least to some extent for a while. But it's tricky because the real answer to this question would involve a spoiler, because not for Connie, but there is another character that's gone in a very drastically different direction recently. For me, watching it up to date, and Rebecca Sugar posted pictures dated, I think pre the show airing, that indicated that character's direction, which blows my mind.
Oh, wow.
When we get to it, I will explain it. I won't forget to mention that, trust me. It's a huge thing when it all plays out. But I think it's really
a character
cool.
I know, I take it.
A character that's been there since early on. I'm not going to specify when that character was introduced, but from within the first few episodes, a character that's been there takes a very drastically different direction. And you think, well, that they've, you don't necessarily assume, but you can guess that that's an idea they've had later in the game, and it's played out nicely, and it's done really well, and it's executed brilliantly, and it fits for the character, and it all makes sense, and we're all happy. But you sort of assume it's something they found that fit. But when you see the image that she drew early on, you sort of go, oh, okay. Like, she knew that was going to happen from almost day one. Like, that's crazy. So, yeah. And I will give no more away than that. But when you see things like that, it's hard to doubt anything wasn't planned. And while there's no factual evidence that she thought Connie was going to go down that route, looking at some of the more recent developments, it's definitely possible. It's possible that existed from
the thing about that though is you kind of, if they have planned everything, then you kind of find yourself going, oh, I hope they only do like 6 seasons and go. I hope they tell the story they had planned. I hope they don't build to hell opening and then run for 20 more years. Cough, supernatural cough. Do you know what I mean? Like. Yeah. If they've planned everything, you kind of want them to have an end date.
Yeah.
So I'm torn between whether I want everything planned or don't.
Well, that's what's interesting is I have a feeling planned might be a strong word, because I think what this show is a collection of preset ideas, and they're finding the most comfortable and natural way to tell that story. So the idea of where that character ended up was on the table. How they got there, completely open for dispute. Do you see the difference? So I don't think with that example I just gave a minute ago that I'm obviously not revealing, I don't think when she drew that picture, she knew exactly everything that happened between the start point and that image. She had a bunch of ideas of how it might happen, and then naturally let it sort of build itself. So she's probably got an end point in mind, but how she gets there, I get the impression Rebecca Sugar will just get there as naturally as she can, and hope and pray that Cartoon Network don't cancel her beforehand. Because there is a distinct possibility of this show getting shit canned at any minute, at any time, because it is.
Why? Because it's Cartoon Network, or
a bit of both. Cartoon
ratings
Network,
bad?
yeah. It's the ratings aren't necessarily bad. The problem is it appeals to a different demographic than Cartoon Network generally. Like, it does seem to attract an older audience as well as the younger audience,
okay.
and it's hard for them to. My understanding of it, and listeners, please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding of it is, and it's the same problem that Legend of Korra had over on Nickelodeon, when you put a show, it's a kids show, that's got a big adult audience and a big kid audience, and it's pulling similar numbers to your kid shows, you can assume a smaller percentage of the people watching are children. Which means, when it comes to making money through advertising, it's who the fuck do you advertise to? Do you put adverts in it for toys? Because theoretically, if you know the show is leaning older in your demographics, that's not helping you. Those toy companies aren't selling more toys that way. So it becomes tricky, because even though you can say, like with Korra, you could say Korra's ratings matched other shows, those other shows were definitely watched by children. Almost exclusively. Do you know what I mean? Therefore, it's easy to say to a toy company, this many kids watch.
Yeah.
So it's and not just toy companies. Obviously, that's just my example. So this is one of those shows that I think suffers in a weird way, because it has an unusually large adult fan base, and its ratings aren't incredible enough to say, oh, the same number of kids are watching as our other top kids shows, and then on top of that, it's the adults. It's the adults are making up a portion of that existing audience. So you look at something like My Little Pony, where that's also true. Its ratings are so sky high, you can say the same number of kids are watching as well. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm explaining myself very well here, but it's a bigger portion of the pie. So what happened with Korra in the end on Nickelodeon was they took it off TV and just put it on the website. They stopped airing it on television. The last 6-7 episodes just went out online.
See, really, that surprises me,
Yeah.
considering like Korra's, because I was about to say, surely the fans of Steven Universe, and that's not the fans of Steven University. That isn't enough. Keep the show on the air. Chris and Dan are doing a podcast. But the fans of the show, their voice is surely loud enough. But then if the spin-off to Avatar, if the power of that isn't enough to stop something getting cancelled, then
you just can't make money off that demographic, because you can't put adverts on a kids channel that skew that way. You can't advertise to that audience. You can't put adverts aimed at adults necessarily, or you can, but you can't do as many of them. You know what I mean? It's very limiting in terms of what you can make off the show in terms of marketing.
Did Korra wrap up?
Yeah, Korra, they gave it a last season, well ahead of time.
Yeah.
And that last season got split into 2 halves of, I think, 6 episodes. And the first half went out on TV. And I think they aired the first episode of the second half on television, and then just pulled it from the schedule and just put them all out week to week online, if memory serves. It's been a few years, so I might be remembering that wrong. But my point is, it was as financially viable to Cartoon Network to just take the ad revenue from the website, from all the traffic, as it was to air it on TV, because it made them more money on television to air an old episode of some other cartoon that appeals more to kids. Do you see the problem? Yeah. It's like it's that, and that's why that's one of the reasons I think Steven Universe has, generally speaking, been considered a bubble show for a long time. There's often been talk of its cancellation. Whether it'll happen or not, I don't know, because I do feel like Cartoon Network have so far supported it, and it does sell an absolute boatload of merch. But when you look at their schedule and it's Teen Titans Go, 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 one Steven Universe repeat per month, Teen Titans Go, Teen Titans Go, you go, oh, I guess Teen Titans Go makes a lot of money, because it's all they fucking air.
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous. And looking at how infrequently they air repeats of Steven Universe, and how frequently they fuck around with the Steven Universe schedule, it's clear it doesn't really... It's not been a big enough success for them to bank on it as like reliable ad money, and they're making it now for the bit of money they make and then the merchandising, which I assume is much better, because that's the funny thing about a show like this is, yes, they make less on the ad revenue because of the reasons I've mentioned. And again, correct me if I'm wrong if anyone knows differently, but that's my understanding of it. But they must make a boatload more on merch because the fans of this show can buy the merch themselves, whereas the kids that
that's a good point.
because they're older and have money of their own that's disposable, whereas
Yeah.
kids would have to rely on their parents to buy them, the Teen Titans Go merch or whatever show you're thinking of. So it's fascinating to look at because it's well outside of the realm of what we normally discuss, Chris. Because when we talk about a show normally, it's like good ratings or bad ratings. Like there's no real weird thing where it's like it's doing fine, but it sort of isn't because of demographics. It's rare that plays a factor into the shows we normally discuss on our other podcast. But it's definitely a factor here.
Well, did you have any other notes on this episode specifically?
Yeah, God, I've ranted about that for a long time, didn't I? Sorry.
No. It was all interesting.
I hope so, because that was just me
see.
ranting for 5-10 minutes. So yeah, sorry.
No. Well, I enjoyed it, but yeah.
Yeah, hopefully that's of interest to some. Yeah, I don't think there was too much on this one. Obviously, I wanted to mention that Pearl singing a bit of "Do It for Her" over the phone, over the radio, because I just thought that was great. When she's like, we do balance is the left foot, right foot, whatever it is, and then balance is the key, and then it just like cuts it. I thought that was really good. That was very funny. There's a theory. I say a theory. I don't know how much I take, because I feel like Jasper was chasing after the gems specifically, but the popular theory is that Jasper was literally knocked into the Great North by Lapis at the end of Alone at Sea.
Oh, I suppose that does make sense. Yeah.
I feel it was probably more targeted than that. Like Jasper's gone somewhere where she knows.
Yeah.
But then again, how would she know? Because they used Garnet to figure out where those gems were. So
That's quite a cool notion, I must admit.
yeah, I'm not against it. I just either way makes sense to me, I suppose. Although it'd be a bit convenient.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, what else was there? No, just some silly little glitches. Like Steven rolls down the hill and he stops at the snow pile, but in the next scene when Connie slides down to him, he's in the snow pile. Little things like that. But there's nothing really. There's not really even many notes on this episode. Looking at the wiki page.
Well, then let's talk about your big unboxing, Dan.
Yeah. So it'll be about a week old or so now, I suppose. But finally, after many, many months, Chris, of me talking about it on this podcast, I finally received my Steven Universe vinyl from iam8bit.com. .com. It's beautiful. It
does look good.
Did you watch the video then, I guess?
Yeah, I saw bits of it, but I was careful because I didn't know if I'd get accidental spoilers, so I didn't see much of it. But I sort of moved the thumbnail along to you actually opening it and then muted it, so yeah.
So you couldn't hear the songs. I only played one song you haven't heard, and it's actually not in an episode. It's an online exclusive, which we'll get to in a bonus episode at some point.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I meant more the so I didn't hear any of it, but I saw the cover and the box and stuff, and the actual vinyl itself. Yeah,
it's a beautiful set physically. It looks good. It sounds amazing. I have one complaint, which is really a shame, which is, do you remember in Mr. Greg, there's two songs that link into each other? I think it's Empire City and Don't Cost Nothing. Literally, Don't Cost Nothing ends and goes into Empire City. They're the only two songs in the history of the show that literally one goes into the other. The rest, there's a little pause, dialogue, whatever, and then the next song starts, if there are even that close together, which doesn't even happen often.
No, that's rare.
Even that doesn't happen. So, like, there is only one song where that is a factor. So, you might find, Chris, that on a set with, 40 songs, the fact that they wound up being that those two songs are split up over a side of a vinyl to be bad design. I mean...
Well, literally, so they're together track list wise,
yep.
But the way the vinyl pans out, they're two separate sides.
Yep. So you get to the end of one side A of that vinyl, and it plays "Don't Cost Nothing," and I'm listening to it, not looking at the record player. So I'm humming along to the music, and then I'm getting to the for the Empire City, and it doesn't start. And I'm looking at the record player going, no, surely there was a way to rearrange the songs so they were on the same side. Not rearrange them literally, but like put one song extra on the other one to make them shuffle along one or back one or whatever. Like,
The
seriously.
problem is they probably chose the track list, and the people that chose the track list and did all that probably aren't the people that manufactured the vinyl.
No, they're definitely not. The track list was designed by the people who work on the music for the show and was released digitally before vinyl was even a thought. I'm not saying, because this is 4 vinyls, right? I'm not saying they should rearrange the songs because they're in the order they appeared on the show. What they should have done is maybe found room on one of the vinyls to move one song across to that one.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Actually shuffle which vinyl, where each vinyl ends and begins.
Yeah.
Somehow to try and make that happen. Because, dear Lord, that is tragic. Other than that, it's a really amazing set. It is legitimately one of my best. It's so expensive. It's really expensive because it was like 50 quid, or maybe 40, which is a lot of money really for vinyl. But it is 4 separate vinyls. They sound incredible and they look incredible. Like, collection wise, it's a beautiful thing to have.
Well, and 4 sides or 4 vinyl records?
4 actual vinyl records.
Oh wow!
Each one styled after Stephen and the 3 Gems.
Oh, nice.
So Pearl's one is clear and see-through.
Oh wow! And Stevens is.
Yeah, and Stevens is like pink and garnet. Amethyst is purple, and garnet's is sort of that red colour. Garnet is. What I did find interesting though was at one point oh no, I can't say that because that'd be a spoiler. I'll talk about that on another episode.
Okay, cool. I took from the video that I think you and I have the same vinyl player.
The Ion one.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, it's a good player. Someone put in the comments, "This is a beautiful set. I wish I owned a record player," and I just thought, like, that might have been crime again. Yeah, they're worth it. I think they're worth it. Like, I really like my record player.
I really do.
Yeah,
I really do. Like, there was a lot of, especially because, like, it's been mentioned before, Jess and I are like saving for for houses, weddings, various houses. Jesus, just one house. Sounds very grandiose.
yeah,
but
he's buying
we're
me
saving.
a house as well. Is what he's not. He's nearly slipped up there and revealed it, but he's going to surprise me with a house.
We're saving up for things, and that makes money. You got to really think about each purchase. And I had a real craving for a record player. And concluded for those reasons that I wouldn't get one, and then Jess surprised me with one. It was my Christmas present, and it's so worth it. Like, my philosophy is like, I won't if I've got an album on vinyl, like, I love that album. Like, I almost fear the day someone buys me a vinyl as a gift if I've not requested it, because I only want special albums. I want albums that mean a lot.
Yeah.
I want like my favorite albums. But you so can hear the difference.
That's
awesome.
how I started. But then you go into charity shops and you see random things and think, oh, that'd be fun to own. I would never pay full price for something that isn't a favourite album, but I have got some random ones that I just like. We've got a Tom Jones Greatest Hits one because it was in a charity shop for like £1. So we were just like, that's brilliant. It's got like,
that would sound good on vinyl. Actually,
so we got,
but you can get them. You can get them fairly cheap. Is the point? Like, I don't think Jess paid too much for mine for Christmas, and yeah.
I think it's about 70-80 quid the Ion one which I've got, which isn't too pricey. I think it's a low end one. I mean, you can spend like 300-400 quid on a record player, but I think this is like a middle ground one. It's kind of low end, but it's good enough to it does the job.
Yeah, I think what I was worried about was because that was the other thing. I knew it'd be about that price range, either me spending it or Jess getting it for me as a surprise gift. And my worry before owning it was,
would you actually use it
for that? No, not even that. For that price, would I hear the difference, or do you need a really expensive vinyl player to hear the difference? But I think you absolutely still can hear the difference. And even Jess, who isn't that into music, was like, "Oh no, you can."
Yeah, because even if it's a thing that was recorded originally digitally and then transposed to vinyl, some people say, "What's the point?" That's it was still recorded digitally. Hearing it in an analog way gives the sound a depth and a tangibility that your ears pick up on. I can't explain what it is, but the sound is really existing. It's not being digitally played through a speaker. There's an actual needle or an actual thing, and it's hitting the bumps that are creating that sound, and the music is being sort of. Is physically happening. And if you turn the audio amplification off and put your ear close to it, you can still hear the music if the record is spinning, because it's physically, that sound is being made. And I think there's just something about it that your ears tangibly can pick up. No, your ears can pick up tangible sounds differently to digital ones. And I do think even when it's been transposed, because it was originally recorded that way, I do really like hearing it that way. And particularly... Particularly, obviously older ones do sound even better. Like I've got a Nirvana, like a Bleach, which actually at the end of that video I do a bit where I quickly go through the ones I have. My Nirvana one, the red one, the Sub Pop release of Bleach is just an incredible sounding record. It's just ridiculous. As is my Pixies one. Wave of Mutilation is I've got the sort of greatest hits one, but it's that incredible sound. It just sounds amazing.
I'd recommend. So there you go. Ratings, vinyls, and some episode chatter.
Yeah, we found a way to extend an episode we didn't have a lot to say with all sorts of bullshit, Chris, is what we're getting at.
Whether people enjoyed it, who knows? But oddly, other than the slight tangent about the specificities of vinyl, fucking that's the second big word, a grandiose and specificities. Like, those are some big British words I've been chucking out. I don't know if they're British, but like I sound like a pompous Brit saying them, I think. Other than that, at the end, it's all been Stephen SU related. So
yeah, we had a big old chat about ratings and stuff, which is interesting.
Yeah,
I don't feel like we gypped anyone. I don't feel like anyone's going to be angry in the comments. So that's always a good sign.
I feel like you've had your fill. Give me a tease though, Dan. Give me a tease for the next episode. That's what I want now.
You want a tease for the next episode?
Yeah, I don't just want the name of it. I want a tease.
Okay. I'll just give you the hint of the synopsis for the next episode. That sound okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amethyst is left in charge of Stephen and Connie.
Oh, cool.
So there you go.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
That means we're getting more Connie right away. That's good.
We
I
are.
like that.
We are. It's called Crack the Whip, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Amethyst.
Yeah. So there you go. That'll be everything for this week. I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
And we'll speak to you on the next episode as we discuss Crack the Whip.